Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is motivation for overwhelmed medical coding students. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. So you are a medical coding student and you are completely overwhelmed. Blue, I had no idea it was going to be this much study. I didn't know it was going to be this much medical terminology. I didn't know it was going to be this much reading. Guys, this is the medical field. Not only that, it's the health information field. So it is going to be a lot of reading forever. For the duration of your career, it will be all about reading. Now, the thing that I tell new medical coding students when they say to me, Blue, I'm so overwhelmed. I have to learn this and I have to learn that. It's just I can't get it all in. I can't retain it. The thing is, guys, what happens is when you're like that is because you're trying to take on too much at once. I always tell people to make a list of everything that you, either your courses or the things that you want to know. Well, which that would be a good idea too. So make a list of your courses, like medical terminology, anatomy, pathophysiology, and the coding part as well. And make a list of all of that. And then make a list of the things that you want to learn in addition to, like the specific list, right? Whatever things that are throwing you off, evaluation and management, or if it is about the diagnosis coding, or is it about the CPT rules for surgery and that kind of thing. So like for the global period, make a specific list of all the things that you need your questions answered, right? And take that list one step at a time. You're not going to learn it all overnight. You are not going to get it all right away, and you're not going to feel like you're retaining everything. What you are doing is you're laying the foundation. It's going to take a lot of repetition to be able to recall these things. You know, doctors, they get 10 to 15 years to be a doctor. And it takes them 10 to 15 years because they're going through all of these things. They're going through this training. They're working on their medical terminology and their anatomy and pathophysiology as well. So think about that, guys. Rome wasn't built in a day, and you're not going to remember everything overnight, okay? So start with your foundation, medical terminology and anatomy. These things are critical, but these are the things that get dismissed most by a lot of medical coding students, and I can't understand why. For the life of me, I cannot understand why. If you don't understand the language of the documentation, how are you supposed to effectively look up the codes? Because yes, while there may be a code for that, do you necessarily need to pick it up if it's a symptom, if it's related to that condition? Is there a coding note about that? You know, that kind of thing. So those are the things that you have to really consider. And starting off with a good foundation in medical terminology and anatomy is great. In your study area, wherever you are studying, right? Put up some posters. I do have some that I recommend from Amazon. Obviously, you don't have to go through there, but pick up some pictures of the anatomy, whether it is the skeleton or the organs or any of those things, and just post them where you can see them. So that way it can become a normal part of your day. And believe it or not, having it around where you can visually see it will help to put it into your mind a lot easier than it would be if you're sitting there, you know, just trying to learn it from a book, straight book all the time. There are many other resources to learning medical terminology and anatomy as well. You know, there's JJ Medicine on YouTube. Now, that is the one that I do recommend the most. There is another one as well, and it's more in detail. I will be leaving that in the description box as well, so you guys can check out those resources. But start looking at those. Take the time to listen to them when you are, you know, having some downtime, maybe at work. You know, you have a 15-minute break. You can listen to something like JJ Medicine. You can pull out your flashcards for medical terminology, or you can even pull out your medical coding guidelines. Now, I emphasize reading your medical coding guidelines a lot because those are our rules. And if you know those, and you don't have to memorize them because they change, but you do have to have a general understanding of the rules. Because when you do, it's only going to set you up for success. So these things that I recommend to you guys is because I have been a medical coding student for 13 years. Actually, probably 14 now. But I call myself a medical coding student because I'm still learning. And as experienced as I am, I still have to learn. There are still things that even I don't understand. There are still things that don't make sense to me. And there are still things that, again, I am learning. But you have to be willing to do those things. So take things one step at a time. If you know you have to cover a lot, make a list and start going down that list little by little by little. Again, you're taking the time to build these blocks. Get through your courses, right? If you're in a program, get through your courses. And if you don't understand something, write it on your list so that when you have the time to talk to the instructor and ask them questions, by all means do so. If you are not comfortable with asking your teacher questions, find a mentor. If you are on LinkedIn, there's a ton of people who are willing to give their time on LinkedIn. I've seen many students say, I need a mentor. I need somebody who can help me with a coding question or something. And I see a ton of people volunteer all the time. Veterans who have been in this industry for years. So there's a lot of really good connections that can be made on LinkedIn. I I didn't know a lot about LinkedIn until people kept telling me you need to get a LinkedIn, you need to get a LinkedIn. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get LinkedIn. And so, but I see a lot of that. I see a lot of very positive folks there. I also see a lot of negativity too. And sometimes it's from the students who are complaining that they don't understand, no one is helping them. Guys, you have to learn to help yourselves too. And you have to learn to take a different approach when it comes to, okay, I don't understand this, let me try to figure this out. Google is your best friend. Trust me, it is your best friend. And sometimes, yes, it doesn't make sense. That's when you have to reach out and find a mentor, or even if you have to invest a few dollars and find a really good tutor, that will also help you as well. So that is something that you can consider. That's something that you can think about. This is an expensive field to learn. It is an expensive field to maintain because you still have to maintain your continuing education units once you get your certification. But that's for another show. So make sure that you are taking the time to list all of your skills, not your skills, but the things that you want to learn, which will be your new skills, right? All the things that you need, you need to focus on, the things that you don't feel comfortable with, so that you can face those challenges head on. That is the best way to tackle learning with medical coding. And take the course one step at a time. You don't have to rush and you don't have to race through. Sometimes people are trapped in these fast-paced medical coding programs, which I never recommend, okay? If your program is 4 months, I don't recommend this. Even if it's 6 months, I still don't recommend it because I recommend programs that are 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months. This is a sufficient time to learn medical coding where you're not getting things rushed and raced through. And I will always get an email from somebody, oh no, Blue, I made it through in 6 months. I made it through in 4 months. Great, that's good for you. And I hope that you understand what you're doing because it's a lot of information to pack in to a short amount of time. It hurts me to see coders ill prepared when they get into the real world because they were able to pass the certification exam, but they're not able to pass these coding assessments. Well, Blue, what's on the assessments? It depends on the facility. Different facilities, different practices, they have different needs from their coders. If you are going to try to apply at a cardiology clinic, obviously they're going to ask you a lot of questions about cardiology. Same thing if you're going to a place that's about an ortho clinic, right? They're going to ask you a lot of injury questions and bone questions because they want to make sure that you know those things. So it's a variety of things that they could be testing you on. It really all depends on the place. But if you're feeling that overwhelming feeling like I can't learn this all, you're not going to learn it overnight. So just take things one step at a time. Stick with the one class that you're trying to do and try to absorb as much of it as you can and then move on to the next course. Now, if it is that, Blue, I don't really remember a lot from medical terminology and anatomy, you will be learning throughout your program or throughout your studies because it's always going to be like in every single chapter, it's going to be something new, right? So you want to make sure that you are saying, okay, you know enough, you got through that course, but you can still continue to learn as you go along. And that's putting those building blocks on there. We do have to be prepared to multitask when we become medical coders. That's something that you'll learn later on. But getting overwhelmed right now to the point where you want to stop, and to the point where you just don't want to do it anymore because, you know, it was too much for you. It's too much for, you know, that what you thought it was going to be. It's the medical field. I tell people all the time, it's the medical field. This industry is for people who like to read, who have that in them, because you have to like to read, guys. That's what we're going to be doing. It may not be your favorite pastime, but it is what you will be doing. And no medical coder gets out of that. No medical coder gets out of that. We do not sit there and push through codes. We have to verify and make sure that these codes that are being selected are correct. You know, we have that responsibility. We have an ethical responsibility, and we have a moral responsibility to make sure that we are doing things right, and that we speak up when we see that things are not being done right. Okay. So again, just make sure that you are not trying to take on too much at once, that you're not trying to go too fast. And if your program is fast, that's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that as soon as you finish your program that you have to take your test. You take your test when you are ready, but I recommend taking it no later than 90 days once you've completed your program. So if you were in a short program, it's okay to take a little bit longer till you meet that 9-month mark. Well, Blue, what about 8 months? 8 months is okay, but it's a lot. 8 months is a lot better than 6 or 4. So that's fine. If your program is 8 months, it's okay. But if your program was really short, take the time that you need to be able to study, because even though you pass an exam, you know, you still, again, you're going to be out in the real world, and you don't want to be ill prepared when you're in the real world. So that is my advice to you guys. Just take it one step at a time and make that list. Don't dismiss me when I tell you guys to make a list, because this list is going to help you to put things on paper, and it will help you to organize your thoughts. A lot of times people will feel overwhelmed because they're letting it in their head, right? They're letting it in their mind and in their head, and they're not writing it down. So it's not going anywhere, but it's up here. It's up here and it stays here. Well, along with that, all the other things that you got going on. Now we're trying to remember what it is that we wanted to learn. Now we're trying to remember what it is that we're trying to study right now, instead of just getting it on paper and leaving it there, so that when you come back to it, you can be like, okay, now I can study this. Okay, check. That one's done. That one's answered. Okay, next. Okay, now I can study this. Okay, check. I got this. That's a good way of staying organized. And it is a good way of seeing what you feel like you're going to get stuck on. Okay, so that way, you know, if you can find a mentor, if you can find a tutor, you're able to get those questions answered as well. So that is my advice for today, but guys, you'll be okay. Just stick with it. It's something that we get to do this, right? Health information and being a medical coder is really an incredible field. You know, you would think that we would have to have degrees, and we don't. And so that I think is a really awesome part of this field. But it also takes people who are individually motivated to be able to learn more, because just doing the status quo is never good. You know, making sure that you prepare yourself by learning more and just taking the time to do things one step at a time, is, instead of everything all at once, is really going to help you. Get on a schedule, guys. Make sure that you say, okay, Monday I'm going to do medical terminology. Tuesday I'm going to do study the diagnosis coding, and of course I'm going to be reading the coding guidelines as I go along. And you can study and structure yourself that way too. So it's just my advice and just my suggestion. I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you like this, please like, subscribe, share, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.